The kitchen light was humming, that low, flickering buzz I'd been meaning to fix for months. She was standing by the sink, scrubbing a pan that was already clean, the water rushing loud enough to cover the silence between us. I watched her back, the tension in her shoulders, the way she wouldn't turn around. The air in the room felt heavy, like the pressure right before a storm breaks. I was standing by the door, my keys in my pocket, my hand sweating against the leather keychain she'd bought me 2 Christmases ago. On the counter, my old phone sat face down, the screen black, but I knew the voice memo app was still running. I knew exactly what it had recorded an hour ago. My heart was beating so hard I could taste metal in my mouth. She turned the water off. The silence rushed back in, sudden and violent. She turned around, drying her hands on a towel, forcing a tight, practiced smile. "You're too quiet lately," she said, tilting her head, studying me like a bug under glass. I looked her in the eyes for the first time in 3 weeks. I didn't blink. "Because I finally heard everything," I said. She froze. The towel dropped from her hands. And in that second, the life I thought I had ended, that we had been together for 4 years. 4 years of shared coffees, lazy Sundays, and a 2-bedroom apartment that smelled like vanilla and old books. It was comfortable. That was the word I always used when people asked how we were. Comfortable. I thought that was enough. I thought peace was the same thing as happiness. I was the quiet one in the relationship, the steady anchor. She was the sail, always catching the wind, always moving, needing to be somewhere else. I loved that about her. I loved how she filled the silence of my life with her stories about work, about the strangers she met, about the drama of her friends. It made me feel grounded. I was the listener. It was my role. It was my identity in us. We had a routine. I would get home first, start dinner, clean up the living room. She would come in an hour later, toss her keys in the bowl, and start talking before her coat even hit the hook. I loved that sound. It was the soundtrack of our home. I never felt the need to interject, to correct, to compete. I just absorbed it. I thought I knew every version of her. I thought I had the full picture. We were saving for a house. We had a number written on a whiteboard in the kitchen. We were $10,000 away from a down payment on a place with a yard. I thought we were building a fortress. IT started with a noise in the walls. A rhythmic thumping from the pipes whenever the heat kicked on during the afternoon. It was subtle enough to ignore during the day, but I worked from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the sound was drilling into my focus. I mentioned it to the landlord, but he was useless, dragging his feet on repairs, claiming he couldn't hear it. I decided to document it. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted proof. I downloaded a simple audio recording app on my old backup phone, the one I kept in the drawer because the screen was cracked. That Tuesday, I set the phone on the high shelf in the living room near the vent before I went out for groceries. I hit record, aiming to capture a 2-hour window of the pipes acting up. It was a mundane task, born out of a petty grievance. I didn't expect it to be the catalyst for the end of my world. I came home 2 hours later. The apartment was empty. She was at work. I retrieved the phone, plugged it into my computer to transfer the file, and forgot about it until the next morning. I sat down with my coffee, put on my headphones, and opened the audio file, ready to email the proof to the landlord. I skipped through the first 20 minutes. Silence. Then, the door opened. My stomach dropped. I checked the timestamp. It was 1:15 p.m. I wasn't supposed to be home, but I had come back early to grab the phone. I heard the front door creak. Then, I heard her voice. But she wasn't talking to me. "He's gone," she whispered. Her voice sounded different, sharp, calculating. It was a tone I had never heard her use with me. There was a second sound. A heavy thud, like a bag hitting the floor. Then a man's voice. Low, smooth. "You're sure he took the car?" I stopped breathing. I sat frozen in my chair, the cursor blinking on the screen. The man's voice was unfamiliar, but the intimacy in the room was palpable through the speakers. I heard footsteps. They moved from the entryway toward the kitchen. I heard the clink of glasses. "He's predictable," she said. There was a laugh in her voice, but it was cold. "He's at the store. We have 20 minutes. I wanted to turn it off. My hand hovered over the mouse, trembling. But I couldn't. I had to know. I had to know if my life was a lie or just a bad dream. Did I listen for the next 12 minutes? It wasn't just an affair. That would have been easier. That would have been something I could understand, something I could process as a mistake or a breakdown of love. This was different. They weren't just betraying my trust. They were dismantling my life. Did you get the signature? The man asked. Not yet, she replied. He's hesitant about the refinancing. I have to make him think it's his idea. I told him the interest rates are dropping next week. My blood ran cold. We had talked about refinancing the apartment the night before. She had rubbed my shoulders, kissed my neck, and told me she was worried about our savings. She had looked me in the eyes and told me she wanted to protect our future. I had agreed to look at the papers on Friday. You need to push him, the man said. The buyers are ready. Once the equity is liquid, we move. You get the transfer, I'll handle the rest. I know, she snapped. Just stop rushing me. He trusts me. That's the asset. I listened to the sound of ice clinking in a glass. I listened to them plan to drain my bank account, to sell the home I had poured my savings into, and to leave me with nothing but debt. They talked about me like I was a mark, a target, a thing to be harvested. I turned the audio off. I sat in the silence of my office, staring at the wall. The pipes were quiet now. The only sound was the ringing in my ears that I didn't confront her that day. A part of me wanted to run. Another part of me wanted to scream. But a colder, darker part of me took over. I realized that if I confronted her now, she would deny it. She would gaslight me. She would say I was crazy, that I misheard, that I was stressed. She would destroy the evidence before I could protect myself. I had to be smart. I had to become the person she thought I was, the fool, the quiet listener, the passive partner. That night, when she came home, I was cooking dinner. I kissed her cheek. I asked about her day. She smiled that beautiful, fake smile and told me about a project at work. I nodded. I listened. I played the role perfectly. But inside, I was recording everything. Over the next 3 weeks, I turned my old phone into a ghost. I planted it in the living room, in the bedroom, in her purse when she wasn't looking. I captured hours of audio. I captured her talking to him in the hallway. I captured her on the phone with the bank, pretending to be me. I captured her laughing with him about how clueless I was. Every night, I would sit in the dark after she fell asleep, transcribing the dates, the amounts, the names. I built a case. I copied files to 3 different hard drives. I hired a lawyer on my lunch break, paying cash, so it wouldn't show up on our statements. I watched her every move. I saw the way she looked at her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. I saw the secret smile when she thought she had won. The rage was a cold stone in my chest. It didn't burn anymore. It just sat there, heavy and hard. I was living with a stranger, sleeping next to an enemy, and she had no idea I was awake. The breaking point came on a Friday evening. We were sitting at the dinner table. The refinancing papers were on the table between us, a silver pen resting on top of them. She had cooked my favorite meal. She was pouring wine, wearing the dress I loved. The atmosphere was thick with her manufactured intimacy. I just want you to feel secure, she said softly, pushing the papers toward me. Once we sign this, we lock in the rate. It's the smart move, baby. I looked at the papers. I knew that if I signed, the equity from the apartment, $50,000, would be transferred to a joint account she had total access to. I knew that on Monday, she planned to transfer it to an offshore account and vanish. I looked up at her. She was smiling, expectant. She thought she had me. She thought my silence was agreement. She thought my quiet nature was weakness. The clock on the wall ticked. I realized I was tired of being quiet. I was tired of listening. I was tired of being the background noise in her story. I put my hand on the papers, but I didn't pick up the pen. I slid them back toward her. I don't think so, I said. Her smile faltered, just for a millisecond, before she recovered. What? Why? We talked about this. I've been thinking a lot lately, I said, my voice steady, about a lot of things. She frowned, reaching across the table to touch my hand. You seem distant. You're too quiet lately. Is everything okay? I looked at her hand on mine. The hand of a thief. I pulled my hand away slowly. And then I said it. Because I finally heard everything. The color drained from her face instantly. It was like watching a light switch turn off. The warmth, the fake concern, the charisma, it all evaporated. She stared at me, her eyes widening, trying to compute what I had just said. What do you mean? She stammered. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the old phone. I didn't even have to unlock it. I just tapped the screen. The audio played, loud and clear in the quiet kitchen. Asterisk, he's predictable. He's at the store. We have 20 minutes. Asterisk, her own voice filled the room, sharp and cruel. She flinched like I had slapped her. She stood up, her chair scraping violently against the floor. Turn that off, she screamed. That's private. You're recording me? I'm protecting myself, I said, my voice eerily calm. Just like you're protecting the asset. I played another clip. Asterisk, once the equity is liquid, we move. Asterisk, she lunged for the phone, but I snatched it away. It's over, I said. The lawyer has the files. The bank has the fraud alert. The police know about Mark. I used his name. I saw the terror flash in her eyes. She hadn't told me his name. I wasn't supposed to know it. She stumbled back, hitting the counter. You don't understand, she whispered, her voice shaking. It's not what it sounds like. I can explain. Don't, I said. I grabbed my keys from the counter. I'm done listening. I walked to the door. She slid to the floor, sobbing, begging, pleading. It was the first time in 4 years she had ever begged me for anything. It sounded like music. The fallout was messy and quiet at the same time. I left that night and went to a hotel. I didn't go back to the apartment for 2 weeks, and when I did, it was with a police escort to collect my things. She was gone. Her clothes were still there, but the important things, her documents, her laptop, her jewelry, were missing. The space felt hollow, stripped of its energy. I found out later she had tried to access the account on Monday, but the freeze was already in place. The investigation was short. With the audio, the paper trail, and the witness statements, there wasn't much she could argue. She took a plea deal. I didn't have to testify. I didn't want to see her face again. The legal process took 6 months. It felt like a second job, a long, gray tunnel of paperwork and phone calls. I lost the apartment. I couldn't afford the mortgage on my own, and I couldn't stand the memories in the walls. I sold it for a loss, just to be free of it. I moved into a small place across town. It's quieter here. The neighbors are loud, but they're strangers. That's a comfort. I don't have to pretend to trust them. The betrayal changed the way I see the world. I don't listen the same way anymore. When people talk, I look for the cracks. I look for the lies. It's been a year now. I'm putting the pieces back together. The money is gone, but I'm making it back slowly. The scars are there, but they've healed over. I learned that silence isn't always peace. Sometimes, silence is just a camouflage. I learned that the quiet ones aren't always the safe ones, and the loud ones aren't always the honest ones. I don't record things anymore. I don't need to. I trust my gut now. I trust the cold feeling in my stomach when something is wrong. I trust the silence that I sold the table we used to eat at. I sold the chairs. But I kept the phone. It sits in a drawer in my new kitchen, right next to the cutlery. I keep it charged. I never listen to the files, but I like knowing they're there. It's a reminder that for once, the silence was the evidence.